Hello and welcome to today's video by OKM3D. My name is Sven and today I have a brand new 3D printer next to me that we're gonna unpack. This is the Zaxe X3. It's a Turkish company that is fairly new and they've made two printers so far, the X3 and the Z3, and the Z3 is kind of the bigger brother. Most of it should be fairly the same. The Z3 really just has a bigger build plate and bigger build volume. And because it's so much bigger, there's a couple other changes in terms of axes and whatnot. But for now, we're going to look at the X3, which is the smaller one, and we're going to unpack it and then have a look at everything that is inside. And then in the future, I'll do some testing with it and probably put out another video on my first experiences with this thing. But for now, we're just going to get it out of the box. So without further ado, let's start doing that. All right, so with a little bit of styrofoam going everywhere, we've got this thing out of the box. It's very heavy. I do not recommend unpacking it the way I did. Instead, get some help. Get a second person so you don't have to tip it, so you don't have to mess with the styrofoam as much. It just makes everything much easier because this is significantly heavier than I expected. That must be due to its very rigid steel construction that gives this whole thing a lot of weight and rigidity. So let's start on the side. There's a USB port right there. On the back, we've got a filament runout sensor. This is where the spool holder is going to go. We've got a HEPA and activated charcoal filter to prevent any smells or the like coming out of the printer. We've got an Ethernet port. We've obviously got our power plug. Nothing special on this side. And then, of course, we have the front with a glass door, quite like that. It's actual glass. The side panels are plastic, the top is acrylic. The top panel does not have a hinge, instead it is fully removable. I'm not sure how I feel about this because, well, it is nice that I can completely remove it and have full access from all sides, but at the same time, if I just want to do something quick inside, I always like being able to leave it on a hinge like this and then work and then close the lid again. Instead, I'm going to have to take it off and put it aside. Minor complaint, not really going to matter too much. There's a decently sized touch display here at the top. As I open up the printer, I get to the manual, which would have the startup instructions and what to do first. And I'm completely going to ignore this and just go and do it myself. So why bother with any instruction manual when you can just learn by doing? There's, of course, securities inside to prevent movement during transportation. There are two on the sides to lock the belts, and then one in the back here to lock the Z-axis. And that's enough because this printer is a Core XY printer, so it actually has a very complicated or slightly more complicated belt system than you might be used to if all you've seen so far is an Ultimaker or a raised 3D printer. But it does provide a number of benefits, and I'll try to explain a bit about that later on. For now, I've just got the transportation safeties out, so everything should be able to move, and I'm just going to plug it in and turn it on. So plug it in, get myself a bit more cable, and turn it on and see what happens. So it beeps at me, and the screen turns on. That's always a good sign. It says loading. The fan started up, and now we've got light as well. So far so good. It boots up very quickly. I'm already in the print or settings menu. It has a little temperature gauge in the top, and now I'm going to use settings. Let's go to the 0 point, because that should lift up my bed, then I can get at everything underneath. The Zaxe printers are all single nozzle printers. In the future, there's supposed to be a material management system that can automatically load and unload the material, so you can print multicolor prints or multi-material prints. For now, single nozzle, one spool at a time. So we're a bit limited in terms of that, at least to begin with. But it does mean that they can have a very high capacity E3D V6 titanium hot end in there, or Titan. I think it's actually Titan hot end. It's absolutely massive with a huge heatsink, that I can see here from the side. So I have no doubt that this thing can melt absolutely crazy amounts of material very quickly and reliably with a good steady material flow to then print very high quality parts. The built plate itself is a PEI sheet, and it's flexible, so you can get large prints off of it very easily. This one is completely smooth, so you will probably have perfect first layers if you're printing on this. It'll be similar to glass, but as far as I know, they also do have a textured one for easier adhesion, and then you don't need as much glue. There are 2 screws in the back of the print bed to help you position this in these corners, so the 2 screws will slot in there. So let me just slide that back. And of course, there are magnets to hold it in place. It might be that with some materials, for example, larger ABS prints, the magnets will not be strong enough and you'll have to fix extra clips around it. I've seen this with other printers that used a similar system. Large warping-prone prints can actually lift the built plate off of the magnets. But hopefully that shouldn't happen here because the entire build volume, at least I've heard that this is the case, is actually very well insulated in terms of warmth. So what happens is that the entire internal build volume passively heats up to about 60 degrees Celsius as you print, and that should be good enough to prevent ABS from warping. I've got a colleague that has one of these, and he's printed a huge dinosaur skull, and he had no issues thanks to the passive warming, and his ABS print didn't warp at all. So there's theoretically a power plug included in the package, of course, and it is situated so that even when the built plate was at the bottom, I could have gotten this out in order to turn the printer on. But now that it has been raised up, I can also take the included spool of, what is this? ABS out of the printer. I'm going to put that aside, and I've got a small toolbox. Let's look at what's inside this toolbox. We've got a stick of glue. We've got some lubricant. Always nice to have that, and 3 hex keys total, so that should be good enough to access just about everything. A USB stick, probably with a slicer and a couple of test parts on it. We've got a side cutter. I love getting more of those. We've got an acupuncture needle in order to clean the nozzle, so that's useful. And we've got the spool holder. The spool holder will go in the back of the printer, so I'm going to do that next. Move everything out of the way here. I'm going to put my safeties into this little toolbox as well, so I can't lose them. Put all this stuff back inside. Put that next to the printer. And now, I love this glass door, and it closes so smoothly. I love this. Have a look at the back. There's a little hole that has been cut out, and we just take the spool holder. It can expand for larger spools or be very narrow. And then we're going to slot that into this oval and rotate it 90 degrees. Now it is fixed. Now the spools from Zaxe, I've got a couple more here to do some additional testing. They have NFC chips. So theoretically, if I put this spool onto that spool holder now, it would recognize what material and what color this is. So that's something they've done. They've put NFC chips onto the spools and a reader into the printer, but that you don't have to use the system. You can put any material onto this whatsoever. It is not a closed system. So don't be afraid of that. It is an optional thing you can use if you want for ease of use and quality of life if you want to, but you don't have to. So I like that there's the option without forcing us to stick to their materials only. As for print size and temperatures, this printer has a build volume of, don't make me lie, 23 by 24. I'm going to get my cheat sheet. 22 by 23 centimeters by 25. So 22 by 23 by 25 centimeters. And the nozzle temperature is up to 300 degrees, bed temperature up to 100 degrees. So you can print all of the most common materials, and it is at least listed on the manufacturer's website as being able to print not just PLA, PETG, ABS, all the standard stuff, but also flex materials, wood materials, metal filaments, and fiber-infused filaments. So you should be able to print just about anything with this, aside from obviously Ultim, Peak, that kind of thing. And hopefully, thanks to this warmth insulation, we shouldn't have issues with warping even with the more sensitive materials. So I can't verify any of these claims yet because I haven't really tested it, but I've now at least unpacked it and gotten everything out of the box. and that means I'm just about ready to start with the next step, which would be running the calibrations once this thing does have an automated bed leveling, and then getting to start my first couple of prints. It looks really nice. It's very rigid. It stands not on single feet at the front and back. Instead, it has one long line of foot to stand on. It's rubber, so it doesn't wobble and it doesn't vibrate as much. I very much like the look of this. Of course, it is a single nozzle printer, and that limits you in some way, but there are plenty of applications where you only need one material and where this will be fully sufficient, and then you have a very reliable and high quality printer. At least that's my first impression. As I said, testing is yet to be done. So thank you very much for watching up until here. I hope to see you again next time, hopefully with a couple of test prints from this printer. And until then, I wish you a wonderful day, and I hope to see you then.